Good evening, everybody. So this is the Performance Scrutiny Committee Partnerships meeting on Wednesday, 29th of October 2025. So just a reminder to colleagues that this Scrutiny Committee meeting is being conducted on a hybrid basis in accordance with the Local Government and Election Wales Act 2021, which will operate alongside the Council Standing Orders. The Council Standing Orders and Code of Conduct will apply at all times, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. A recorded version of this meeting will be uploaded for public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting. Welsh translation of the proceedings can be provided upon request. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the council. So there we are. Thank you very much for that, as always, colleagues. So the first agenda point is apologies, please.
And we've received apologies, Chair, from Councillor Jones, Councillor Harvey, Councillor Screen and Councillor Bright.
Thank you very much there. Just to double check, is there any from the floor? No, thank you. And any declarations of interest from colleagues? Okay. No, thank you very much there. So we go straight into the first substantial report, which is the One Newport Local Action Plan End of Year Summary Report 2024-25. Can I ask who's reporting, Janice? Yeah, if you want to introduce yourself and others, please, and the report. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Janice, Policy Partnership Manager within Newport City Council, and with me I've got Tracy McKim, who's the Head of Services Online, and Wayne Tucker is our Senior Policy and Partnership Manager, and really supports the Newport Partnership. We have Alison Wheeler from Colleague Gwent, who is, and forgive me if I get the title wrong, Work Placement Care Coordinator for Colleague Gwent, and we have Mark Williams, who's our Library Manager within NCC as well. So if it's okay with committee members, I appreciate you've seen the report. I thought it'd be useful to do a background presentation just to kind of pick some of the key points out. So if you're okay, Wayne will share the presentation and then we can speak to that, if that's okay. So I think the first thing we wanted to do was to kind of give a bit of background about the One Newport Partnership, because there have been reports to scrutiny over the years, because it was a public services board within its own right up until 2021, when the Gwent Public Services Board was established. Are we allowed to share?
Yeah, let's just show that we stop sharing. So I can, yeah, saying that this I'm trying to see the screen.
So with the technical bits that kill us, isn't it? So yeah, so the Public Services Board was established in 2021 by PSPO, and One Newport became a local delivery group under the regional partnership. The important thing is for us is that we, as well as supporting the regional work, importantly for One Newport is the needs of people of Newport, and really concentrating on what is important for Newport as well. So as part of that, under the Wellbeing and Future Jones Act, the Gwent Public Services Board developed the Wellbeing Plan, and we did our wellbeing assessments. People will remember a few years ago across Newport. They're due to be renewed now in 2027, so we will be going through that again and updating those. And from those wellbeing assessments, the Gwent Wellbeing Plan was developed. So there is an action plan under the Gwent Wellbeing Partnership, and then our local delivery plan, which came to scrutiny last year for sign off. So you will have seen this. This is the first annual plan under that delivery plan. We will also just the Gwent Wellbeing Public Services Board has also done an annual report, and that hasn't quite been published yet. So as soon as that's published, we will share that with members as well. I was hoping it would be published in time for this meeting, but it wasn't quite ready, so I will share it afterwards. Because One Newport is no longer a statutory kind of public services board or local delivery group, the annual report isn't a statutory requirement under the Act, but I still feel that it's important that Cabinet members have the opportunity to be able to scrutinise the work of the partnership and the strength of the One Newport Partnership as well. So this report is a summary report. You'll see there's lots of case studies within the report, and Wayne will go through a bit more in detail in some of them. But the most important part and the main aim of One Newport and the annual report is to showcase some of the really strong partnerships that we have and the work that the the partnership does.
So yeah, the next thing is just to tell you, in your papers, there's a summary report that includes a selection of case studies that showcase the work of the partnership during 2024-2025. And on the screen there, on the presentation, you see the range of different case studies that's in the summary reports and the papers. This quick presentation that we're going through will just focus on a few of those, give a bit more information. Yeah, just to acknowledge that really. So we're not going to do all the case studies in this presentation, but we're just focusing on a few that cover the local action plan and the process, and it covers all the three of the themes within the local action plan, which is the family culture and the communities.
And I think as well, we discussed this, didn't we, Jane, with people saying that actually, even though there are some things in this report, the case studies are kind of things that you might want to discuss, and we can have a little bit more detail on. It's actually the work of the partnership that we're hoping that you'll help us scrutinise, as opposed to the specific areas of work. So yeah. The first one we're going to talk about is fast track Newport. So there's a few members that have been involved in that. So within Newport, we signed up as Fast Track City in November of 2021, and we spearheaded the work. We did lots of work around working with the national and international fast track cities network to prevent new transmissions of HIV by 2030. So we developed a streaming group within Newport. We had members from community groups such as Pride in the Port. We've got membership from Iron Bedlin, from the other local authorities across Gwent, and from other third sector kind of communities like GDAS as an example. And the aim was always for it to become fast track Gwent. So just after this reporting period, we did sign in the summer as fast track Gwent, and I think it's a real kind of push to show how Newport can take ideas and when moving forward, and the strength of the partnership around us enables to be able to do that. So we have three main priorities. We increase awareness of testing and the numbers of people getting testing. We reduce the stigma around HIV and also reach out to the communities who have traditionally been underserved. So a lot of the work that we do, and you may have seen us out and about, particularly at the Prides, and other networks, is talking to people and just trying to encourage people. Lots of people have got really old kind of opinions of HIV, and that it is only something that affects men who have sex with other men, and we know that that isn't the case, that HIV can be contracted by anyone, and also within Wales at the moment we are seeing our highest kind of rate of new transmissions is in heterosexual women in their 40s and 50s. So, it's something that we're really trying to make sure that we're speaking to all of our communities across Gwent. And a bit of a plug that it is HIV testing week coming up now, the 17th of November. So we will be our first big event as Fast Track Gwent. And it's a really positive piece of work there. And I think it just showcases Newport as Newport partners that's having the kind of bravery and the strength to go out and pilot things, and then be able to share that with the rest of the region afterwards.
The next case study we touch on is Blwyddyn mainly. So a community-led initiative in mainly coordinated by the charity Diogelu Limited and supported by the council and a host of local volunteers. The main aim was to transform neglected urban spaces to provide green areas for people and wildlife. I'll touch on this because it shows that strong partnership where locals are taking ownership and working with the public and third sector organisations to transform areas within Maindy to benefit local residents. Its key goals and activities around revitalising the neglected land, so turning underused or fly-tipped areas into pocket parks, community gardens, orchards, wildflower meadows and pollinator corridors, around improving well-being, to provide green spaces designed to support mental health and physical health, reducing air pollution and mitigating flood risks, around community engagement, so holding monthly social events, volunteer gardening sessions and educational activities are held in mainly to involve residents in the green benefits, and around sustainability and biodiversity, to provide low maintenance planting schemes and sustainable materials to create long lasting green infrastructure. One of the projects within Ymddi and a part of being Ymddi is the Gateway Garden. That's a flagship program transfer the junction of North Road and Chester Road into the public garden, and it has many benefits, including well-being, when peaceful, accessible space for relaxation, especially important for residents without private gardens, an issue that's highlighted during the COVID lockdown. Around biodiversity, supporting urban wildlife and contributing to Newport's green infrastructure, and then that community ownership, developed over a decade by local owners. It's a symbol of what grassroots efforts can achieve with the right support. So I wanted to flag this particular case study to show you all the good work that's taking place and what locals, residents working with public and third sector, what they can do in those areas to improve life for residents on multiple benefits. On that, and the sort of final case study really, and I'll introduce Mark and Alison and on that, is around a couple of case studies in the report that touches on supporting learners with additional learning needs within the library service. One of those is interns, partners of support and supporting interns at Central Library, and the second is in relation to what's done by Ymddiheuriadau Garden. So and on screen the number of testimonials provided by the learners in both those sites really. So I guess next to this, so hand off to Alison and Mark, both from a Newport City Council perspective in the library service, and at the wider city perspective and the other organisations that are involved with supporting learners.
Oh, thank you. Okay, well, thank you for having us. It's great to be here with you, just to give you an overview of some of the work that we've been doing in partnership at both the Pollinator Garden in Ribston and obviously the supported internship at Central Library. So I guess the catalyst really was the Pollinator Garden at Ribston Library, because I've been the library manager in Newport for 2 years now. And one of the first things I determined about Ribston was that it had a garden, but that it was unloved and unkempt. And I'd been living and working in Canada for 15 years prior to coming back to Wales. And one of the things that we'd established over there was a pollinator garden in the library branch. And knowing that the creation of a pollinator garden in the Ribston Library Garden would align with so many other corporate goals and objectives, I just felt that it was a really good opportunity to think about how could we make this space usable, both from a library perspective in terms of doing outdoor story times, outdoor information and education sessions, but also more broadly tying in with the biodiversity and sustainability agenda of Newport City Council. So we partnered with the biodiversity team to think about applying for a Keep Wells Tidy grant, which ultimately we did. We got that Keep Wells Tidy grant in order to be able to tame the beast that was the garden and create this pollinator garden. But I also wanted it to be driven by volunteers, and while we were recruiting for volunteers to be able to work with Keep Wells Tidy officers, Alison spotted the advert for the volunteers, reached out, suggested that the volunteers might be good to, or the learners within the adults with additional needs program within Colleague Gwent, or the independent living program, might be good volunteers for the pollinator garden. So we pursued that discussion, and ultimately they did become volunteers, and a number of your colleagues came to the launch of the pollinator garden in June, and we launched it at the same time as the Summer Reading Challenge. But from those discussions in terms of the volunteers at the pollinator garden, we then moved into discussions about the same learners or learners from the same program that were able to work at a higher level, maybe doing the supported internships within Central Library. And the point of the supported internships, I guess, is that once they completed a period of time learning tasks within the organisation, they're then eligible to apply for paid work, whether it's within that same institution or somewhere else where the tasks are replicable. Prior to us having a conversation, Alison had been having conversations with Wayne and HR about doing something within Newport City Council, and it was felt that the library would be a good arm of the council to pilot the supported internships with a view to rolling it out corporation-wide should they prove successful. And so the first year of the supported internships is complete, and it had been particularly successful, I would say, in that each of the 4 learners that were placed with us were paired with a community learning and library assistant. So they had their own individual mentor to learn from within the library. They came in 2 days a week for the academic year. And during that period of time that they were with us, they learned the tasks that the community learning and library assistants undertake. So whether that's shelving, whether it's serving customers, whether it's delivering programs, whatever it might be, they've learned those tasks. And I think for me as the library manager, there are 2 hugely impactful outcomes in addition to the fact that the learners are gaining these new tasks. In the period of time that they've been with us, they've grown in confidence, self-confidence, and just their general mindset when they come into this space is one that's very positive, upbeat. They've gone from being very socially awkward to being completely engaging with all of the staff and all of the customers. And similarly, the library staff have gone from seeing it as an additional burden on their time to something that they are effectively advocating for within the community as something that should be replicated within other organisations. And so on that note, I don't really have anything else to say. We'll hand over to Alison.
Thank you for inviting me along. So very much what Mark has said. Mark and I got together for the Rogerstone Library to work on the pollinator. So in Coleg Gwent, we have a department called Independent Living Skills, where our learners come to us on all 4 sites in the college. So that's Crosskeys, Newport, Evervale, Blaenau Gwent Learning Zone and Torvine. We have Ask, but we don't actually have that department running at us. We use Ask for other reasons. And we have learners coming in at various stages with ALM, and usually there's a low academic ability. And these learners come to us and we assess, and once they've been with us for a number of years going through the 4 pillars, they then have an opportunity, if possible, to go out and try and dip their toes into employment. What's really important for these learners as well is that they get that opportunity, and they get an opportunity to get social inclusion, grow and prove that they can hold down employment. So we started with learners at the Pollinator Garden. Those are learners who were not quite ready to go into the world of work. And then we started working at Central Library. And what is really good about the opportunities is to see the learners grow. We've been running it now for a year, and we're about to start our 2nd year with some new learners coming in. And the learners then, at the end of the year, we sit with those and we look at progressing them then into possible part-time employment, or they might want to go into full-time volunteering. Because with our learners, they come with quite a few barriers. You may be aware it's not just the barrier of the learner, there's the barrier of parents, there's the barriers of income and all sorts of things, which we don't need to discuss now. But it's giving those learners an opportunity with employers that they wouldn't get without these programs. So we've been running a supported internship with Neville Hall with the Bevan Health Board. We're just entering our 5th year, and that's also been very successful. We've had learners who've actually progressed into employment in the Bevan Health Board. So last academic year, we had a learner who secured a post as a porter working full-time at the Grange Hospital. Many of our learners come out of the internship, you know, like all of us, they have an opportunity to look for employment with the host employer. Some don't want to do that, but they want to use what they've learned to find and seek employment elsewhere. So we help to progress those learners. So one of our learners has left the programme now and is looking at part-time employment. 2 of our learners are returning because they want to just boast of their skills, because we didn't start at the beginning of the year, did we? So we want to give them that opportunity. And now what we'll do as well is after Christmas, we will look at progressing them. And it is really important because they live in and around Newport. And without this opportunity, when they finish with us in Coleg Gwent, they will end up sitting at home or in day services, costing the council a lot of money. And if we can get them into employment and have opportunities as Mark has offered us, I think it's fantastic, isn't it? You know, they're now part of society. We give them all the skills to live independently. We give them the skills to be able to go out and work and be able to live then and get jobs. And we've proven that with the programs we've run with the health board. So
And I think, sorry, I think it's also worth mentioning that while there is value to the learners from your perspective, they've actually contributed to the delivery of tasks within the library space as well. So of course, initially they were learning those tasks, but now they are.
But now they do it. Yeah, they do it.
Too, yeah.
And it's good, you know, with yourself, you've seen a change with your staff, how they've grown in confidence, how it's helped them. And likewise with the Mannau Health Board, they've looked at their recruitment process. Because most people who, well, anyone who wants to work in the health board has to have 5 GCSEs as a starting place. So what we prove by the internship is we are proving that these learners can do the job with experience. It doesn't have to always be an academic background to be able to achieve these jobs. So it's given them an opportunity to apply for work. They can turn around and say, look, I've been doing this job for a year. I've done it successfully. I've worked without support in the last so many months. I've been able to complete a shift. Can I have an interview, please? And that's worked because they've progressed into employment. And I think it's hugely beneficial to the employer, the organisations, the learners and their families. So if we could do more with Newport Council, it would be brilliant. Please. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, team.
I think before we go to questions then and any comments, I just wanted to stress, I mean, you know, well-being is massive, isn't it? Full aim of what Newport is to support the well-being of our residents, and that's some really good examples of how that's worked for cohort. There's more examples within the report, but importantly, I think I really wanted to stress how committed all of our partners are to when you've got partnerships. It would have been quite easy when the correct well-being public services board was set out for them to say, actually, we're all ready to working on a regional level. Why do we need to be involved in the One Newport? So they've maintained that strength of partnership and collaboration. I think there's a real understanding across everywhere, but particularly in Newport, about the fact that not one agency has the answers. And it's really important that we all work together to be able to support our communities. And we've been lucky, we've maintained kind of really committed kind of partnership and attendance from our social landlords, Gwent, University of South Wales, Mannau Bevan, South Wales Fire and Rescue Police Service. They're all really kind of entrenched and embedded in to be able to support the wider things that are in the report, such as placemaking plan, etc., etc. So, but we really wanted to concentrate on the well-being element and how working in partnership can help some of our more marginalised kind of parts of our community as well, and actually without a job and without that sense of purpose often can be kind of left behind. So really important for us to kind of showcase that. So that's it from us, I think, Chair. So yeah, any questions or comments appreciated.
No problem. Thank you very much, Dave. What I'll do is I'll bring in Councillor Davis. I know you had 1 or 2 comments that you wish to raise, so I'll bring you in.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was a really, really positive report to read. And we were saying just now about with regards to the Rogerstone Library. And I think it's so important because, like you just said, there's one thing that I advocate as well. You can have as many degrees as you want, but it doesn't make you a good nurse. And that's what applies with what you're doing with regards to they don't need qualifications to be able to do something and to be worthy of full-time or part-time work or volunteering. I didn't have any questions as such, but yeah, I just wanted to commend you on the report and the work you're doing and just say thank you and well done. Thank you, Chair.
Always, Councillor Davis, thank you. What I'll do then is I'll bring in Councillor Jewett, if you want to come in with your points there, please.
Yeah, Chair, thank you. And thanks for a really positive report today and a report on all the excellent work that you're doing from Fast Track Newport and the education around HIV and linking with Fast Track Cities and Fast Track Gwent. and then the library gardens and improving the library gardens, but through Coleg Gwent and volunteers from Coleg Gwent going there and learning living skills and social skills, independent living skills. And I think that's a real example of coordination of different partnerships. And that leads me to my question. So, and it's partly answered by you today. But how is One Newport Partnership aligning its priorities with all its partner organisations, and how effective are these partnership governance mechanisms in maintaining alignment and avoiding duplication? And is the information shared and coordinated between partners to track progress on well-being goals, and what lessons are emerging from partnership arrangements that could inform regional collaboration?
So we do have the local action plan, which kind of supports that collaboration. We meet once a quarter, chaired by the leader at the moment, to make sure that we're having those really rich discussions, because this one thing is having a piece of paper to say this is what we're all going to do. Another thing is learning from each other as well, and kind of almost those not random conversations, but conversations that you have in a partnership space that you maybe not have thought of collaborating on, but it gives us the opportunity to do that. We've moved the way in which One Newport kind of works, and it seems to be working for all our partners as well, in that we tend to be holding like topic areas now rather than going trying to look at everything at each time. So it really enables us to do a deep dive into what is everybody doing in this particular area and how can we support each other to do it. One of the examples about kind of bringing it all together was, I think it was the meeting before last, we had the wellbeing plan brought together, we had the placemaking plan brought, we had the culture strategy brought, and Myron Bevan's new strategy brought, and there was something else, the Police and Crime Commissioner's strategy. And it was really interesting in the space because we talk about do they speak to each other, and actually it was really interesting that all of the things that the presenters picked out of their particular strategies were all aligned and all working together. So I think sometimes we can sit in a partnership space and we can say that we work in partnership and we're aligning our ambitions, but actually that's not what you see. But it was really, yeah, I think everybody around the table commented on how nice it was to see that actually it's really clear we're all working towards the same goal, really clear that we want to have a real positive impact on the well-being of our communities, and that we all recognise that we can't do it on our own. And that we have to be able to work together to achieve that and work with our communities as well. It's very much the strength based from our communities. We don't want to go in, do we as organisations, and say, right, this is what you need to do. It is about what is happening in the communities, what's really strong. The Green in Maindee is a really good example of that. There's already a lot of work going on in Maindee, so how can we all work together to be able to support that rather than take over or do something different? So yeah, I'm not sure if that answers all your questions. Sorry, President.
Thank you. Yeah.
Is that your questions there? Yes. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Councillor Jewett. I believe I have Councillor Hussain next, please.
Thank you, Chair. I couldn't actually find a I couldn't find a way to click on for to put my hand up to talk, so I put it in chat. So I just wanted to say that I'm a trustee of Maindee Library, and I have done some work with Green in Maindee when I can manage to find at the time. I know they have some projects by Maindee Primary School, and me and my husband have had that, and they do a fantastic job with looking after all the green spaces around Maindee, and it's really nice to hear that they're doing a really good job, and that I'm glad to hear that you're working in partnership with them and helping them along. And it just goes to show that these kind of projects with Green in Maindee and the space growing space at Bellevue Park just that, just these local initiatives, how they can, both help like environmentally and with the social impact, around these wards and, with the residents. So and I'm glad to hear that, the praise for some of those projects that they're doing. My question is that with regards to the Dolmen Theatre, have you considered exploring opportunities to maybe replicate the success that's we've had with Dolmen Theatre, maybe into other community buildings?
So I'm looking behind me because, sorry, Sylvia. But obviously this was supported by Sylvia's team through kind of the climate change work. So I believe it was a pilot, if I'm right, Sylvia, so learning from there, but funding probably dependent.
Yes, I think they tapped into, well, I'm not sure if they applied because last year we had a community grant to SPA for implementing buildings or community groups.
And we can maybe get back to
Yes.
you, councillor, if that's going to help.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's great. Yeah, thank you.
I would ask, so obviously any correspondence to one councillor can you send to the committee just so we kept in the loop as well, if
Yes.
that's possible. Thank you. Councillor Whitehead, I can see you up there. Yeah, I was going to call you in. Yeah, please.
Yeah, Chair, just an observation really. Obviously, it's a very positive report and there's been some very positive comments. I'm particularly drawn to the area around the ALN, which I think is a fabulous pilot, and I'd like to see that spread a good disease, if I can coin a phrase. And when we have a community garden on Betters, and we can see the positive things that come from additional learning needs people, bringing them into that environment, bringing them out of their shells. But for me, sometimes I just think this is fantastic, and like it's a bit similar to what we do. But I'd like follow-ups when people leave us. It'd be nice to know how they're getting on in life outside of what our small contribution to their journey, if that makes sense. Do you get any feedback on that? And the other observation is, when we see positives, I think just far too many people are inclined to knock the local authorities, and it happens on all too many regular occurrence. And I'd like to I share as much as I can from the council's website, so to speak, and I'd like to it's things like this that I'd like to put out there and people be made well aware of some of the fantastic and positive work that goes on.
Yes, certainly. Yes, so we do check the destination and progression of all our learners, and we also support them past when they actually leave College Gwent, because some of our learners with ALNs, we job coach them, and our job coaching team look after them. Even though the college finishes in June, we will support them through the summer months, and we've actually got where we've had some success in the last 5 years with the Narren Bevan Health Board. Some of those learners who left the health board, took a different pathway, have actually come back to us this year, and we've run a part-time course, and we are now going to use this year to help progress them and find destinations. So as a college, we are very much governed by the Welsh Government and our new funding arm now, which is MEDA, and we have to report on all our outcomes. So progression and destination is one of my new tasks this year that we do. But with our ALN learners, we particularly track them from their employment because it's outcomes. And this year, I was also very lucky, because it doesn't happen always, in March, for National Supported Internship Day, South Wales Argus ran, I was able to get a case study in there because one of our learners, Dion, who was on our second year of an Narren Bevan Health Board, at the end of the year working in medical records, he achieved an apprenticeship with medical records. And at the end of 18 months, he now this year in February secured employment with medical records. He's already increased his hours and he's doing absolutely amazingly. So I was able to get that featured in South Wales Argus. So I do push as much as possible. And maybe the powers that be can give Mark and I space on Newport Council website. And we'd be happy, because I think if we shout about the work we're doing in Newport for our learners and for the community, I think that would be appreciated. and maybe it would make other people want to come on board with the programme as well. So
I think there's just two things.
And you deserve that space, Mike. Like, you deserve that space. Let's have a chat about it.
Just to add two things to what Alison was saying, I think it's important to note that the volunteers or the learners for the Rogerstone Pollinator Garden, they've signed up for 5 years.
yes,
So they
yes,
completed
they'll
that
be back.
first year, so they'll be coming back for another 4 years to make sure that the garden is maintained. And also, I think, you know, at the time when something of significance happens, press releases go out and information is put on the website. But I think there's an opportunity for us to be better at putting more updates throughout the course of the year on the website to ensure that people have a momentum around some of that, because otherwise
Yes.
it just gets lost, doesn't it?
Yes,
So we can make that happen, I think.
absolutely.
Chair, I was just thinking as well, we did lots of work around the participatory budgeting over the last few years, and there's quite a few really nice kind of examples there, Councillor Whitehead, on how, you know, we work with communities to be able to help them to do their job. So I think it would be helpful, we can share a video on the kind of outcomes from the participatory budgeting work and how that network now, even people that weren't successful in the first couple of years of gaining the distribute PB money, they still stayed as a network and they still work together and kind of, you know, learn from each other. So that's something that we can share afterwards if that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Just to link on before I bring in my other colleagues there, I think the work being undertaken by, especially with the library and the ALN side of things, is really important, because I think more the fact, and from my understanding, it's more of the rather than the person going for the role, it's the role defining the, you know, the side of things of how we culturally change how we are dynamically, and through that I heard obviously saying about the 5 GCSEs and things like that there as well with the health board. So in terms of context, are we looking to hopefully make a positive change through the work being done under this partnership? And, you know, what's the landscape looking like? Is there any partnerships starting to look at, actually, there's an opportunities, we've got opportunities here, we might be able to open up there? What's the kind of playing field, if you will, in that regard?
I think for us, I think it's looking at now we're coming into our first year of running it properly as the internship, is that what an Bevan Health Board has done is given us a guaranteed interview scheme. So when our learners come to the end of the internship, we have a guaranteed interview if there are roles available that they can apply for. And I think if we can start looking at that with the library, but also broader with the council, that would be appreciated, because again, for us, you know, we want to put our learners through this environment to try and achieve a job, but if at the end of the day the barrier is still there, I think that's something that, yes, as a council, if they prove they can do the job, if they prove they have the skills and the knowledge, and just because they don't have an English or a maths GCSE shouldn't be that barrier. Our learners as well, we also work with our learners to take on board any inductions. In the library, they do the induction, they go through DBS. If they are required to have mandatory training, we support them to put them through that. We do that with our other contacts with the health board as well. They go through food safety, first aid. So these are learners that we are identifying to come onto this programme, on a Pathway 4 programme, that can maintain the job, can hold it down. So I think, yes, that would be the next steps.
I think, you know, from a Newport City Council perspective, there are things that we are doing already that evidence the ability of the learners to be able to move it into a paid role within Newport City Council. And we need to have ongoing discussions with HR to determine what that looks like in terms of removing some of those barriers. So, for instance, with the supported internship participants in year 1, they all completed the same mandatory training that needed to happen for any volunteer, not necessarily because there was a sense that they would necessarily retain all the information that they needed to retain if they were left to their own devices. But they got a certificate of completion at the end, which meant a huge amount to them in terms of that confidence boost, but also that feeling of getting some kind of qualification. But of course, in their instance, they're not left alone, right? So there was an understanding that at that point in time, it was more a performative piece rather than an informative piece. But, you know, certainly, as I think Councillor Davies mentioned, you know, when you think about some of the tasks that these participants are undertaking and their ability to be able to deliver them, certainly after a number of years, what restriction or ability does having a GCSE in something in relation to the ability to do the job that they've shown they can do because they've learned the task? Those are conversations that we need to have with HR, because of course it would be a robust policy change, but it is conversations that I think we need to be open to having if we are serious about supporting the outcomes.
I think to that point, so part of our people plan, our HR organisation future plan to be able to do that. And there is a kind of report coming to different scrutiny in early 2026 to look at kind of some of those things, because those are the kind of conversations that we're having. So I think, Mark, it'd be really useful if me and you pick this up and speak to kind of my colleagues in HR as well about how we can kind of better align that work. But it's already work ongoing. We've just had some new members of staff within the HR team to particularly look at that and our recruitment practices as a whole. So yeah, I think if we can kind of look in and then share the kind of report that goes to the other scrutiny in 2026 as well, just to provide a little bit of reassurance and support really. Yes, because we all want it again, it's really important, especially when we look at Newport being a neurodiverse friendly city. Those are the kind of things that we really need to be doing, leading by example as well. So I think it's really important that we kind of work together on that.
Agreed on that, so thank you, Janice. I just wonder with that, so we've touched about the scrutiny side of things. Has that gone to political leadership yet in terms of the cabinet and things like that there? Are they aware and are they signing off on things at the minute with that, or are they looking at opportunities within that scope as well?
The people plan.
With the people plan, but also looking at this specifically, like Laura Lacey and things like that, their council-wise?
Yeah, I think it's Tracy may want to come in on that point. I don't want to give an answer this excited my remit. Sorry, Tracy.
Yeah, that's fine. And the people plan has been to scrutiny and has been signed off by cabinet, so that's kind of got authority to work through some of those things. And some of that is about us being an employer of choice and extending our workforce into different communities more than we currently do, but also working on the exact sorts of things that I think it was Mark, sorry, I couldn't tell you who said it, but that Mark was talking about do you need those qualifications for this role? And also, do you really need to fill out a 5 or 6 page application form on certain things, which might not be something that some people can and want to do. And all of that is going to corporate performance scrutiny in February, I think, to update on the progress on that. But it's all very much part of a commitment we've made in the people plan. And Mark, we'd like a follow-up conversation with you about that, which Janice will sort. Thanks.
That's great, thank you all. It's one of those things about in scrutiny to understand the partnership side of things, but is the leadership on board? And it's by the sound of it that's progressing on that side. So for us, that's welcoming to know that everything is sinking into place in that regard as well, from the top and obviously from the grassroots level. So thank you very much for that. I will bring in Councillor Peterson. Sorry for the wait there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's a very positive report. It's quite evident that the partnership is working. I'd like to touch on the net zero and the home energy efficiency support. It says in there that there's 30 properties which are expected to receive improvements. What I was wondering, is this scope within the council to offer up data, because the data was obtained by A&E for Iron Bevan Partnership, where they match up the admissions to the EPCs. Is there any data that we can supply? Because I think once residents get into A&E, then you're reacting normally to a problem because they've been in the cold house, then they end up in hospital. Is there anything we can do which would be a bit more proactive by using data from within the council, or working with other departments which are also assessing for the EPCs and all that, before the Eco 4 runs out in March, I believe, and then it's Eco 5 then?
I'm not going to put Sylvia on the spot again, but just to say there's a lot of work happening within Laura's team, within Sylvia's team, and also within our anti-poverty work stream and our accessibility strategy, and that's one of the things that Laura and Sylvia's team came to present on. So I think, you know, we just need, we can maybe schedule that for another meeting and give it a bit more detail. But I think, yeah, I haven't got the detail with me, but I think it is really important to your point, and it is something that the team are working on with Sylvia's support as well. So.
Yeah, because it was great work there. It's like, you know, it's like the organisations where you've got the match 2027 organisations that work, and the Dalton Field I mentioned earlier. So there's great work going on there. But just like if there is scope there, I think that would be a positive move by the partnerships.
And I think from that as well, I know we've mentioned about like the Dolmen Theatre and things like that there. I suppose, yeah, absolutely fantastic projects on that side, but I suppose as well, the wider Newport community will probably want to know about how does that be replicated across the city of Newport. So what terms, what's the progression moving forward? What does it look like, and how does community members across the city look and understand what that could feel like?
Yeah, and that's not something we can do today, but we're more than happy to work with colleagues to be able to bring some information forward.
But the work is progressing on that side. I think it's just that communication, I suppose, what I'm getting at, to showcase actually, you know, the documentation is there, it's in the, you know, wherever social media, things like that there, but you know, when we're doing all of it's like, yeah, but what about me? What's happening? What's about my local community? And it's a bit things like that there. And maybe I know like there's certain government members are looking at how we utilise our community centre assets better and things like that, which I'm sure will fit into some of the project work that you do as well. So it's just about that scoping opportunities and things like that there. But don't forget to bring obviously everyone, you know, on that journey as I speak. So on that side. I know Councillor Davis, you wanted to come in for a question as well there. Do you want to mute Councillor Davis?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's going back to the ALN students, really. How do you decide what students to put through the programmes?
Very good question. So our learners come into college and they may be coming into us on a Pathway 3, Pathway 2 programme. They then go through IDP's independent training plans, and then we work and progress those learners through their pillars. And we are constantly assessing those learners to ascertain they are ready to go out for employment. Some are not, some will never go out. But for those learners, we are helping them to be independent, to live independently. We're giving them all the skills required. So it's very much through assessment while they're with us. And also the choice of the learners, because not every learner wants to go and find employment. So it's important for us to take the view from the learner. Also through the experience and knowledge that we've had over the last few years with the internship program, we assess the learners to ensure they are ready. So in some cases that they may take up an internship as such within the college first in our own internal departments to ensure they're ready. And then we work with those learners to look at where do they want to go, what do they want to do. Very much like us, we vocationally profile the learners. We have to look and be fair, it has to be geographical to where they live, because again, we are trying to give them employability skills. They need to be able to travel, train them to travel independently to get to work. So there's a lot of work that we have to do 2 years before they even step foot onto an internship, so that we give them tasters. We encourage them to be part of our retail entrepreneurial programs we run in the college. We put them internally into departments to ensure, again, they're ready. We have to work with the parents as well, or guardians, to get them on board. So it's a long process, and sometimes it works and it's really successful and they come out to employers. Sometimes they're not quite ready, and sometimes they don't want to go into employment, so we just give them the skills for what they require. So a lot of assessment with the learners.
Because did I hear you mention earlier that it was a 5-year that they're with you for it's a 5-year program?
No, we're running 2 programs with Mark and the library. So we've got a pollinator program at Rogerstone Library. So that is a 5-year program. So the learners will be able to go back and forth to to Rogerstone Library over the course of 5 years. Those learners are not our learners who are ready yet to go into employment. So they're going up to Rogerstone Library to build on their communication their confidence. It's a community project. We work with those learners to establish what are their needs, how can we support them better, how do they work with the social inclusion. And some of those learners may not want to step further into employment. And then the programme that we run in Newport Library currently are those learners who've progressed through the programme who are now ready to go out and test the waters to see if employment is ready for them. And that's why we take the internship over an academic year, so that we give them that longer time to hone in on all the employability skills. And then at the end of it, we work with those learners to look at their destinations from there, because that's usually their final year in college. And that's when we work with them to find employment, volunteering. Or some of our learners sometimes come into our mainstream education. So we have had learners from our internship who have found that they want to go into cookery or they want to go into art. So they come onto our mainstream programs. We've had success there as well. So we've got a few different destinations for those learners.
That's brilliant. Do you know how many that you've got on the programme at the moment? How many students?
At the start of this academic year, we will probably have around 30 learners going out with employers.
Oh, that's brilliant. So, well done. Sounds absolutely brilliant. Thank you,
it's
Chair.
hard work, but it's brilliant.
I bet the reward at the end must be absolutely amazing, not just for yourselves, but for the students as well. That even something as simple as going on a bus the year before, they might have thought that it was an impossible thing to be able to do. So for them to just do that simple thing is absolutely earth-shattering for them.
Yes,
so it is absolutely brilliant, wonderful. Thank you, Chair.
It's very much, and thank you for that. I suppose the next point, just to ensure is covered, but just looking at about how things like funding and stuff like that would work, and obviously with certain provisions of the following year, what's the kind of backup, if you will, or do you see it progressing, or what happens if it does prove challenges after, whatever happens in the next future years? Just generally the whole plan in front of us today.
So the plan is not funded, if that makes any sense. So it's very much a partnership commitment. So we all bring our own resources and our own kind of pots available to us to be able to do the work. So
And that relies on, obviously, it depends on what funding they receive and things like that there. So it's just about how that challenge is, and is there a plan B or whatever have you, or is it working in that partnership to work smarter, efficiently, and how does that work in structure?
Development work, and we're in the past maybe they were just done that piece of work with that funding themselves. So yes, we're looking smarter in the arena and ensuring those resource and knowledge and drive some of this work forward, and being able to come together in a space where you can discuss and try and solve those issues, try and resolve those issues to make those improvements where they can. Across the board with that. So unfortunately, the plan itself isn't funded with specific money, but obviously it's where plans coming together. The pool of some of those resources are also identified where they can bid for funding together as well. So that is the case of organisations come together and work on that, and that's happened on the ground level.
One of the examples of that is it's only happening in this year, so we'll be able to report on it next year. Is digging down into those kind of conversations that we're having now. So one of the conversations we dug into was homelessness. The other one is around green spaces, green careers. So as a council, there's often funding available that public bodies can't apply for. So that working with the RSLs, who probably are just about to do some really good work on green careers and how we can all link into that and we all benefit from their funding. So yes, those deep dive into conversations to recognise where are those opportunities for us to work together and to support it and make it more of a long-term goal rather than just doing a year of this and then moving on to another year. This working, how can we support each other to continue that work?
I think it's that thing, isn't it, about sustainability, but how do we actually be, better that moving forward, and how do we be bigger and bolder moving forward with that? And it does come down to, as you said, sometimes, there might be restrictions or limitations in terms of what the public side has in terms of funding. However, the third sector, various other organisations would have access to funding, and they may take a lead on a project, for example, to affect that funding through. So it's good to know that those conversations are had, and hopefully strengthen that as we move forward in other, as you said, deep dives and stuff like that then to different projects. So I appreciate it, and obviously that's a bit more supportive on that side, because it's one of those things, isn't it, with anything with the public sector, it's like, so what's happening with funding? So it's just to reassure obviously that side that it is covered on that regard. I suppose the other one for me with reading the report, as I said, it is a really positive report from that. I suppose, just with that, about how do we monitor the success on it? So even though we have it in paper in front of us, so how do we work out things like, we said about the impact of green spaces, about cultural events, impact on these young people, for example, and we're talking about the LLM. How are we monitoring that just to make sure that we are having that impact? And I know sometimes, having a green space might be harder to kind of say so many people benefit, because we're not there with a clock timer all the time when someone comes in and out. But it's only scoping or monitoring that we can be assured that that's happening somewhere in the background.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, we do regular updates through what report and on progress updates on the plan and the projects taking place. But a number of those projects will have their own monitoring as part of their monitoring purpose in relation to that move forward. For example, a lot of stuff in the climate change net zero, they will have their own monitoring as part of that process. But it's just having a space to come together and making sure soon these reports will also regular reports through basis to keep partners updated on progress and where there are issues potentially that can be picked up and as well.
At a very local level, when it comes to the learners within the supported internship, because the whole point is that they're learning tasks, so that we track how successful they are in learning each of those individual tasks, and they're paired up with a member of staff who mentored them for the duration that they're with us, and so we track the success of each task that they're learning, and then they progress to have more responsibility in relation to that specific task. So over the course of the first academic year, you can see that there is a significant increase in their ability to perform the tasks that they were given, so that when they come back in the second year, they'll be given additional tasks, as well as building on the success of the tasks that they might have achieved in the year prior.
Thank you.
Sorry, on a wider perspective, because lots of these things, they're not quick fixes often, and it takes a while for people's well-being to improve. So the well-being assessments that I mentioned that were undertaken kind of before, those, because that's where we identify the actions within the local development plan was from what people were telling us through the well-being assessments. So they're now due to be renewed, like I said, for 2027. So that real kind of feedback from our citizens who said, actually, the work that you've done this year has meant that the green spaces that I've got would be this different. I can take my children out and do this, do that. But so it's a longer term assessment, because it's every 5 years, but it really gives us the opportunity to kind of really evaluate those activities that have happened during that period, and then to kind of reevaluate our delivery plan to make sure that we're kind of following it through with what the residents are saying. Actually, this made the biggest difference, and moving from there. So I think that the wellbeing assessments in 2027 will be our biggest wide kind of higher level and kind of impact evaluation on what difference the partnership is helping to make.
Thank you. And I think it's more the fact of just where we are. So a lot of this are pilots and things like that there, and also learning. And I'm sure, for these, whether or not, we're challenging ourselves enough, as a partnership, whether or not, what's happening with the lessons, how do we monitor that moving forward? Because obviously it's about how do we better impact others, but also, there's harder to reach or harder things to kind of monitor, but so other things about perception, does the green space feel like it's having a reduction or perception of antisocial behaviour in the area because people don't hang around, because it's a good looking place, people don't necessarily hang around in that side, things like that there. So it's about how we engage with the communities in that side, which obviously links within that in the scope of mindset. And I suppose That links on to my other kind of thoughts about how will local people be able to have a bigger say in what happens next year as part of leading the project and the plan forwards as well.
Yeah, so I guess we look at we as a team, we are regularly supporting team and also the wider council with engagement and participation together views on projects and indeed about making improvements moving forward. And as Jan said, during next year we will be developing obviously the next Robin assessment, very good conditions with them, and as part of that, not only is there actual data collected, there will also be public engagement as part of that as well, together views, and that will be a really good opportunity to include a lot of the work that we've probably done and get feedback on, and the public feel making a difference that's made as well. So, but as a regular basis, each year as a team we support close with the council, and also as part of the partnership, and together we to help inform projects before they're developed, but also as they're taking place and making improvements.
It would add probably on that side about the wider community, how we engage with them as well, because I think there's different ways of, social media only does so much and things like that they're getting out. So I suppose it's a way that we can challenge ourselves to actually think bigger and scope it out and say, this is how many people we'd love and aspire to have. How do we get out there? Who do we need on board? Is there that scoping involved now? And is there, a percentage or whatever number that you would wish to have that you find is challenging enough?
I don't think quantifiable number on it. We have got it's one of our reports within our service plan. How many citizens have we engaged with, and what it obviously comes through our pre-preparedness and equality impact assessments as well to prove that. But what we are doing as much as we can now is recognising that often as public bodies or as partners, we're asking the same people the same questions. So we're really kind of trying to dig down with our partners now and say, actually, if an Iron Bevan is going out and doing lots of engagement with about what does well-being mean to them within an Iron Bevan board, actually those same answers are going to be applicable to us. So it is something that we provide regular engagement reports kind of through the CM and through kind of OSMC, but actually we are really working to be able to, and there was a little bit of a hiatus during COVID where most of it moved online. But like this year we've been out a lot more, going to events, but more importantly sharing with our partners who are also at those events, or you'll go in there, can you find this out, you'll go in there, can you find that out. Even on a smaller level, we met today with quite a few of the partners around Fast Track going together, and the HIV testing week. Why are we all going out to different places? Less, with an Iron Bevan and Jesus Apri this day so they can do this. So just making sure that we're being as kind of clever with our resources as we can, because we're all doing and it's those kind of things that actually take a lot of time, massive value, but just take a lot of time, so I can make sure we're working with them. And I know Councillor Hussain is really keen on this, and particularly with our minoritized communities, and working with our community leaders to be able to kind of get that feedback as well. And yes, so there will be a report, and going back to what I was saying, see they have annual reports on engagement, and CM obviously is kind of well involved, but that wider, let's share kind of what we're hearing from people is going to be another important point. And another thing is about the you said we did. So often we, as public bodies, we ask lots of questions. We don't actually demonstrate to our residents and businesses what was done. So we're doing a lot of work with our partners and internally on how we can be better at that.
Thank you.
Sorry, I think at a practical local level as well, and I'm sorry to pull everything back to libraries, but as the library manager, if I can't do it, who is going to do it, right? But over the course of the last 18 months, we've embedded the working together project, which essentially puts community-led libraries at the heart of service development, right? So it's about asking the communities, what do they want, and how do we then implement what it is that they're asking for within the parameters of library service provision. So you may recall that we've recently appointed a community-led librarian who's been employed for about 18 months. And her role is specifically to engage with socially excluded and marginalised communities with a view to breaking down barriers to access to library service provision. And we have implemented no end of projects based on that feedback that have driven programme participation, programme attendance, access to our collections, access to our services, and that's an ongoing process, right? We can see the impact that it's having in a wide range of communities, particularly those communities where we've struggled to have engagement in the past, right? And there's lots of different projects that I could speak to, but I think it's a momentum change, and it's that whole philosophy is gaining traction such that we are increasing our user base, and our user base is coming to us from different communities around the city, which is hugely beneficial, not only for the library, but for the residents of the city.
And it just might think about, like, you know, there's a lot of fantastic work here, and I think, you know, we've seen in the media quite recently about, you know, well, it's generally on social media, a lot of negativities about our city, where actually there's a lot of positives that are really happening and a lot of really positive work. And I think it's about time that hopefully we'll be able to share and demonstrate those, whether or not be on videos or whichever, just get the message out and actually showcase what the council does, what the partnership does, and about how that engages, because what also might happen from that, we might aspire, you know, and motivate other people to come on board and things like that there, you know, and maybe even allow a bit of further challenge to make us better. But then if the public sector does good, private sector, you know, how can we link in with them a bit further and stuff like that there. So hopefully the wheel starts on that side. So with that, and best of luck also on that side. What I will do before we finish, just do a round robin on that side, although we're on that side, so bear with me a second. Can I double check, does any councillors online wish to ask a further question before we conclude on this report, please?
I'm fine, Chair.
Councillor Hussain?
I'm fine, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Davis.
Not from me, Chair. Thank you.
No problems at all. Thank you. And Councillor Peterson, anything from you? Last words? No. Myself? No. Thank you very much there. So that'll be on this side. I don't know if you want to hear back just to make sure that we've got everything here today. But a massive appreciation on this side. Really positive work. And you know, make sure you keep challenging as well. Don't keep still. Always challenge. Thank you.
So what we've got at the moment is request just received the wellbeing plan annual report when it's been published. Comments in regards to the Dom VW considered an exploring opportunity to replicate the success we've had into community buildings. Comment from Councillor Whitehead about good news should be spread. Yeah, the successes. Advise be able to share the video from the participant budget. Yeah. Comment from Councillor Peterson about net zero, working with NCT data to identify eligible households, and comment share about how the project, how it's replicated in City Newport, how what's the progression moving forward. Read my notes, yeah. So Jack, we mentioned about bringing work colleagues to bring forward and showcasing local communities how to utilise the community centres better. From those notes, is there any other recommendations the committee would like to make in regards to the report?
Yeah, would it be appropriate to recommend that to people, speakers of HR, to look to liaise with our colleagues here, Mark and Alison, about opportunities for college-led students to be employed?
I would go potentially one step further, maybe map a local authority to see where people can maybe have opportunities, and whether or not that has been done already, or whether or not the scope can be done. But maybe it's having that thinking in teams and stuff where that can fit in.
I think that was another thing that Tracy said when she that I meet with HR.
Yeah, and Mark as well. Yeah. So hopefully, when you get feedback, it's something that you can maybe send to the scrutiny team that can send it to us as committee. Is that okay as well, just to keep us informed what's going on and what work has been conducted afterwards.
And maybe you just said it, I don't know, but recommend that the work of colleague Gwent and the library service is publicised on Newport City Council, if you said that.
That was one of the points previously, but not in the recommendations. Yeah, thank you for that. Councillor. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll just introduce us on this side. So we've got the next conceptual report, which is the Dog Control Public Spaces Protection Order, which is known also as PSPO. We do have one thing, if it's okay, just to read out from the cabinet member to colleagues beforehand, just to accept her apologies for not being here. But she would like to note that the Dog Control Public Spaces Protection Order, PSPO, plays an important role in maintaining clean, safe and welcoming public spaces across Newport by requiring dog owners to clean up after their pets, keep dogs on leads in sensitive areas and avoid restricted zones like children's play areas and sports pitches. The PSPO helps reduce health risks, prevent nuisance behaviour and protect wildlife and community facilities, ensures everyone, families, walkers, sports teams and dog owners alike can enjoy shared spaces responsibly and respectively. So that's from the cabinet member of 140. But yeah, if you would like to introduce yourselves, if you don't mind, and introduce your report, please. Thank you.
Well, I'm the Health Service here to support this report. I mean, I don't want to say much because, you know, I think the important things, you know, any questions and debate. So just pass it on to Joe for a brief, you know, overview of the report and the outcome of the presentation.
Okay. I'm Joanne Gossage. I'm the Service Manager for Environmental Measure with Newport City Council. And the report that we brought before you today is to seek support from the committee to take forward the renewal of the Public Space Protection Order concerning dog control within the open spaces of the city. This is the open spaces that are owned and managed by Newport City Council. The original order was enacted in November 2022, following the approval of the full council in 2022. This current order lapses on November the 16th, 2025. The committee is advised to consider the renewal of this order, which has been preceded by a comprehensive public consultation, and the findings of the consultation are included in the report, and I'll briefly go through some of those today. The intention is for the renewed order to continue from the existing measures currently in place, although there are a couple of amendments which I'll highlight further down in the report. In general, a public space protection order aims to prevent individuals or groups from engaging in antisocial behaviour that negatively impacts quality of life within a given location. Dog control order is focused on the open spaces that are owned or managed by Newport City Council. And these include playing areas, play sites, sports courts and pitches during the playing season, our cemeteries, the general highway infrastructure, including the verges, public footpaths, bridleways and cycleways within the city. Since the introduction of the order in 2022, the enforcement of it has relied primarily on persuasive and educational measures and followed these up with firmer action when necessary. We've produced educational materials, including signage, and we've had media coverage with an emphasis on encouraging the public to act responsibly. The direct enforcement has been carried out by park rangers, gardeners, countryside wardens, grave diggers and other council officers who have, when needed to, asked individuals to keep their dogs on leads, to take them off the sports pitches, but also to remove feces from the grounds. The amendments I mentioned earlier in the order as presented to the council in 2022 are only slight. Within the wording, specifically under section 6, we've required any person in control of the dog to keep it on a lead in the vicinity of livestock. This amendment has been added as it reflects a change in legislation, in parallel legislation, regarding the control of dogs on roads near livestock, and this is under the Dogs Protection of Livestock Bill 2025. So, for example, for the committee, sheep moving along the road or horses using bridleway would be protected under this order. Additionally, we have made changes to the designated areas that are covered by the order. So this is on the mapping itself, and this is for the reasons of changes within the asset base of the council. So I'll give you an example from Trenegar Park. We've had a splash park area which wasn't there in 2022. We've included the area around the splash park within the fenced zone within the order. So the order has been extended there. In addition, we've had a couple of new play areas installed, for instance, in Black Ash Park and on Kelly Road. So the order now will cover those new play areas as well. So that's how it's changed. To ensure adequate consultation, we engaged with key groups and organisations from the outset. These included the sports clubs, the governing bodies of the sports bodies, the Kennel Club, the Muslim Council for Wales, the National Association of Funeral Directors, RSPB, and others. Banners and notices were displayed around sites. They were on gates and fences to inform the public of the forthcoming renewal, and social media was used to raise awareness. Consultation period ran from the 26th of July this year to the 1st of September. And this was presented with a series of questions and mapping data. Mapping was presented on the Commonplace platform, which allowed people to focus in on specific areas and leave direct comments relating to the maps themselves. So this was an outside organisation we used for the mapping element, because that gave us a lot more accuracy in terms of the responses that we received. In 2022, we received 335 responses. This was down to 250 responses this time, but in that we had over 200 responses of agreeing with the order, and commenting in some detail on the aspects of the order and what people felt about it. So that was very positive. The consultation opened with a question regarding the impact of the order and whether it led to improvements. Responses to this were mixed. Some participants fully agreed with this. Quite a few expressed neutrality, and a percentage disagreed with the statement. About 40% disagreed with the statement. As such, we took this as a general consensus that the effectiveness of the order was neutral, but showed us that we needed to make further progress in order to meet public expectation of what the order was supposed to achieve. We also asked the public specifically as if it has had a positive impact. Again, the responses were quite split, but overall it was a neutral response to that, with quite a lot of support on that one. Dog fouling and waste disposal, this was a prominent concern amongst the consultees. There was overwhelming agreement that restrictions should be in place to require individuals to pick up after their dogs immediately. This was highlighted within the questions regarding did people know about disposing of waste within council bins. This was a repeat from the previous order, and it showed that most people were aware that waste could be disposed, but there was still a lack of knowledge, so we need to raise awareness in this area. There was strong support, very strong support actually, for the requirement that dogs must place the owners must place dogs on a lead when instructed to do so, and particularly in relation to them being allowed onto the marked sports pitches. Only 10% of the respondents disagreed with this restriction, so 90% were in favour of dogs not being on sports pitches. Okay, so this, and just for the committee, this was notably, the number of comments on this one was significantly higher than previously, and we see that this is a bit more of a reflection in sort of attitudes towards field sports, numbers of people who are participating, particularly children participating in field sports, and also increased numbers of women and girls taking part in field sports. We think that there's a direct correlation with that. There is strong support for requiring people to clean up after their dogs. As I said before, there was calls for greater enforcement, with many people suggesting that rules should be enforced more vigorously. In response, we have commenced conversations with environmental health about how we could realistically progress this, particularly in hotspots such as cemeteries and on the sports pitches, as mentioned before. The feedback has also indicated that we need to improve public campaigns about proper disposal of the dog waste, and also for keeping dogs off pitches during the playing season. The responses from the key stakeholders that I mentioned earlier were that Dogs Trust particularly raised concerns about keeping the dogs off the sports pitches. They were uncertain about how that could be feasibly possible. British Horse Society highlighted the legislative changes that I've mentioned just before under the Protection of the Livestock Act. They also provided us with quite a lot of data relating to dog attacks on horses, which were quite eye-opening actually, all of which these attacks on horses could have been prevented if there was proper control of dogs. So where we've got potential areas of conflict within the authority between horses and dogs, for example, are bridle ways. So one of the main ones is the canal through Newport. So that's one of the places that it's particularly important to keep dogs under control. So our recommendation to the Scrutiny Committee is to support the new dog control order for 2025, including the additions specifically restricting dogs in areas where they could be in close contact with livestock, in order to align this with other legislation. We advise retaining the order with the updated insertion around this livestock element, and also to cover the controls within public spaces, particularly pitches.
I do see a hand up, I think, Councillor Whitehead.
Yeah,
do you want to
Chair. Yeah, this is something that's particularly close to my heart, actually. In the early 2000s, for a long time, I was a rugby player and a coach of a rugby team on Betis, as you know. And my brother and another chap, he still bears the scars from dog feces on the pitch. And I can remember, it was a bit embarrassing at the time, but I had to make a point. I had a full rugby kit on. I was on the front of the Argus, holding my nose on a nice ice cream shaped dog feces, because it bothered us that much, and obviously it impacted two players' health. So this, for me, this has been a long time coming. It'll be hard to measure outcomes because how do you really police it? You know, it is a difficult thing to police. We shouldn't even be here really, because people just need to be absolutely responsible. If you own a pet, you know, with that comes responsibility, and even I think it has got better. We kind of police it ourselves at the rugby club, and I think a lot of sports clubs tend to do that anyway. And I just think that, yeah, this is just a totally sensible thing to do. It's unfortunate that you have to do things like this, But this is the world we live in, and like I say, this is something that it's been a long time coming, and when it came out, I applauded it, and again, these further measures, I also applaud again. So I think it's great work, and let's keep doing it.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I don't know if you had any comments on no, I think it's more sort of comment, isn't it? But if you had anything.
I'm just glad that Councillor supports it.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Is there anyone else online? Councillor Davis or Councillor Hussain with any questions in relation to this report, please?
I think.
Yes,
Oh,
thank you, Chair. Oh, sorry, did I just interrupt?
Yeah, all it was like kind of a supplementary. Sorry, Fazina. And all it was for me, it's around the like I said, it's about the enforcement. How can we be reassured? This is difficult. It's one of them areas that enforcement is the biggest challenge. You know, you can't just rely on the public. What would you do with public making phone calls, for example? There's a guy on the pitch with a Labrador as we speak. I can't see the Blues and Twos rushing out to deal with that. So for me, from a local authority perspective, it is actually the enforcement, I think, is a massive challenge.
Well, just to say that obviously that's something that comes quite clearly as an outcome of the consultation. It's something that we're very much aware of. I think in the initial, first 3 years of the PSPO, the approach, as Joe said, it was much more on the persuasive side, and just expecting that there would be public behavior following the rules. And I would say probably the majority of people are responsible dog owners, but you always have a minority that will create problems. And I think we really need to take an extra step, and on top of additional communications and still education to the public, be a bit tougher in terms of enforcement. As you mentioned, we are in conversations to really implement a better system. So while resources are scarce and obviously we're stretched, and as Councillor Whitehead commented, it is difficult to police and monitor, and there are a lot of dog owners. We have a huge network of public spaces, so we cannot be everywhere, but there are certain hotspots and certain areas where we can concentrate our efforts.
Thank you.
Sorry about that, Councillor Hussain, if you want to come in now.
Yeah, no problem. That's absolutely fine. I just wanted to say that one of the first issues that I had to deal with was actually dog fouling, and it was back in 20.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Hussain, you've muted yourself.
Oh yeah, I have. Sorry. It was when I first got elected in 2021. This was one of my first issues. And it was to do with dog fouling and dog mess in cemeteries, and letting the dogs run around off the lead around the graves, which the residents who contacted me, they weren't from my ward, by the way, they were just from everywhere, and they were contacting me because it was more of an Islamic and Muslim issue, so they were just contacting me about it, and it is something as well which is close to my heart as well, because it's very disrespectful, letting your dog run around graves in a cemetery without a lead on, and you don't know where your dog is, you don't know what the dog could have done any part of the cemetery, and having the dog on the lead is absolutely essential, and I fully support this the recommendations, and also the added recommendations as well, to do with around livestock, and I'm glad, it's reassuring also to see that the consultation, it was such a thorough consultation process, which showed very strong community engagement, and the contribution from stakeholders as well. I think that's really important too. But I do have a question. How will you ensure that the updated PSPO is effectively shared with the residents, especially including those with disabilities and people, communities, or residents with a language barrier? How will you effectively do that?
Yes, Councillor, I have several ways of doing this. what we're going to do is increase the level of signage across the site, particularly in hotspots. You've mentioned the cemeteries. The cemeteries are one of our particular hotspots, and we're going to do some more targeted patrols with our own staff and see what's happening down there, because we have had complaints, many complaints about the cemetery just recently. So that's very much on our radar at the moment. But as I said, persuasive measures through members of staff, also through educational means, so on signage and signage elements within the cemetery, so symbols showing where, you know, dogs can go, where dogs can't be going, where they need to be on the leads. But what we would try to do as well is make sure that we have several interpretations of the wording of the order, and look to have this multilingually presented in certain areas where we know there have been issues. So that's, and we'll back that up with social media campaigns and getting messages out on social media.
And
Yeah,
if I can, sorry, just, you know, in certain areas, if you know there are specific problems, we'd be very, very willing to work with you, you know, and any like community groups, whatever, to try and help promote the mission.
Yeah, no, I was actually just going to say that. I'm more than happy, as well as, you know, I probably speak for all the councillors listening today. They'd probably be more than happy to promote this as well, and, you know, forward on the information to our contacts as well, and the community groups that we work with. Yeah, I'll be more than happy to do that.
Same, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Just on this point, how are you going to ensure that signage is accessible to all, accessible signage, including people with disabilities, visual impairments, learning difficulties, and are you going to include QR codes to help in the educational process?
So the use of QR is something that we're looking at quite vigorously at the moment for a number of our sites across the city, and obviously that links both to our sort of countryside sites and into our park sites as well. So the dog control measures will be included within that. So yes, Councillor, we are looking at the QR code system at the moment.
And then obviously that's outside our control, but I believe our colleagues from the communications team ensure that any information that is included in our website, you know, there are specific versions for people that have issues with visual impairment, or so there are ways to ensure that, you know, that our media content is accessible to all.
Can I just clarify, because obviously Councillor Druitt also noted about the signage as well, so how can the signage itself also be accessible? Would some of that be also included? I know we said about the website and documentation, but would that also be likely for the signage as well?
Yes, Chair, you can put the QR codes on the signage, so that's one of the things that we would be looking at.
But with moving away from the QR code, would the signs itself be accessible for anyone that wants to read them, essentially?
Well, we'll take advice on that.
Yes.
Through the communications team.
Yeah.
Which is the best way to present that.
It's just
But obviously they would be bilingual, they could be multilingual, depending on what you know, where the location is. But yeah, we'll take advice from the communications.
And as Joe said, we would also look at pictorials and images that can help people that may have like reading difficulty or dyslexia or something like that.
That's more kind of on that side, yeah, because I think it's more to tease out, because I think there's going to be a lot of people that doesn't use mobile phones or technology and stuff like that there, and all would benefit from having it, and people with disabilities and stuff will see a sign and they understand the pictures more than they understand the wording. So that's kind of more the answer on that side. Thank you. Hopefully that's also added to what you're looking for. Thank you. Was there any questions from you, so Councillor Peterson, please?
Yeah, I was wondering if it is fair to expect the frontline workers to confront these people who acting antisocial. It's like from the garden, as you said, it's like previously, even if it's persuasive actions, these people obviously aren't the best social behaviour people, so they're likely to get abuse back. and when the frontline workers haven't got no enforcement powers with it, is this like asking for trouble? Because I would imagine it'd be quite frustrating for somebody cutting the verges with a stringer who spends day in, day out in these piles. Like we walk down the pathway and may see the odd dog, but somebody who's cutting it day in, day out, surely has to have a lot of pent up frustration in them from being covered in this mess. And if they do see somebody, allowing them to confront them, even if it's in a polite way, it's asking for trouble. Or what training would they have to be able to confront them as well on the frontline services? And furthermore, if enforcement teams are going to enforce it, what training are they going to have? And as Councillor George mentioned earlier before the meeting about are they going to have body cameras on and stuff to safeguard them whilst carrying out the duties of challenging this behaviour?
So we, when we brought the order in last time, we did have discussions with the team, in the teams in the parks and cemeteries. I think Luke Stacey is on the call. He's the parks manager, and he had those direct conversations with some of the teams. He might want to sort of interject at this point and what was said exactly to the teams. But my understanding is they were told to voice their concerns about what the person was doing, whether it was a dog that was out of control or picking up feces. If there was some sort of aggressive behaviour, then they were to sort of remove themselves from that area and report that back to the management.
And if I can, before Luke comes in to kind of talk about the specific, considerations that were taken with the staff, it's just that normally when we have staff interacting with members of the public, there would be the parks ranger, which have as part of the function that interaction with the public, grave diggers as well, even if it's operational staff, then we have that part of that role, which is interacting with cemetery users, etc. And what would be required from them is that initial interaction on a non-conflict basis to just provide information to members of the public so they are aware of what the rules are. I would not expect those kind of staff to put themselves in a situation that causes a stress or any potential conflict. And people who have that facing a role as well, they all go through the compulsory training as part of the conflict management, etc. But always at a very early stage. Any additional proper enforcement, as you said, they would be asked to report back. If there's a known issue in an area, hotspots with aggressive behaviour, specific individuals, it's when enforcement staff would come in, which have different duties as part of the role. We have different training, we have different equipment with them, and it's not different if you're dealing with someone who's not following the rules in terms of dog fouling or dogs on leads to the same enforcement officers who may be dealing with an antisocial behaviour situation where there may be conflict. So we are kind of talking about two levels, I guess, of operation here.
Yeah, it's like my first one's like to clarify, a gardener or someone who's cutting the verges, they wouldn't have to be obligated to confront. It's like a member of the public. If they did do it, they wouldn't be obligated to actually confront them and say, oh, well, can you pick that up? If they felt it's like, oh, well, I don't want to, I'm here to cut the grass, I don't want to engage.
The staff aren't obligated to do it, but if they give that direction to the public, they're under the wording of the order, they'd be
supported by the council.
Yes, it would be supported by the council. Luke, did you want to talk about the cards that were given out?
Yeah, so I mean, just to echo what Joe and Sylvia said in terms of the approach the rangers and the gardeners take is very much a kind of a light touch enforcement. They're there to provide that information to visitors to the sites. Quite a lot of the time, people are going against the PSPO without necessarily knowing it in terms of sort of exercising dogs on sports pitches. So the rangers and the gardeners, they really are there just to share that information around the PSPO and just to spread awareness, really. But like Sylvia said, we're not expecting the teams on the grounds to confront people. Obviously, they've got to keep their own safety in mind when working on the sites. We do have information cards that the rangers have on them. They can give those out to visitors of the parks, and that breaks down the restrictions within the PSPO. So yeah, essentially it's about spreading awareness of the PSPO with our guys on the ground.
And then it's like I also asked about on the second tier where it's a bit more aggressive, where you are going to confront because it's an ongoing problem. So you start going to a hotspot and you find someone. Will the officers have body cams and stuff like that for their safety for when they're challenging out in the open spaces, or because you've got enforcement teams already, which operates quite fine and very well trained in their orders. But is there anything in particular which will happen with the enforcement with this?
To be honest, it's not dissimilar to any other enforcement and, you know, issue of the spot fines for any other concerns that we have. You know, they can issue an FPN for dog fouling, same as they issue them now for littering or any other social behavior. They normally are in pairs, so you know they're not left on their own, and they walk along the protocols that already exist. So.
Yep. Okay. Can I ask, are there plans for renewed ongoing public education campaigns to promote responsible dog ownership under this plan? And how will schools, community groups and local vets be involved in supporting public understanding of the PSPO?
Chair, the teams are engaged already in looking at potential ways to communicate the criteria within the order to the wider community. Schools will be something that schools will definitely be an area that we will go into and use the teams to talk to kids, maybe sort of generate a campaign. I believe through waste management they already have you know, teams that go in and talk to the children about, you know, waste and fouling and things like that. So yeah, we
veterinary practices.
Veterinary practices.
Yeah,
we haven't got those on the list, but we'll take that one way. Yeah,
yeah. I think that's important actually, because that's where the pet owners always go.
Yeah,
and get
that's a good suggestion. Yeah, good suggestion.
I think from that, just really good, like if you feel, we're saying obviously with the PSPO about places that dogs cannot go. Is there corresponding sort of information about where they can go, where dogs are allowed to go a bit more off lead or anything else like that there? Because obviously that's the question that some people may come back with. It's like, yeah, we're limited here. However, where can I actually go then? You know, it informs that.
The wording of the order talks about being under control, but it doesn't insist on dogs being on lead. We don't have specific off-lead areas apart from the fenced area by the dog kennels, which is somewhere where people can take their dogs if they want to train them to recall and things like that. It's about control, being able to control your animal within an open space, rather than insisting that, oh, it has to be on the lead here or it's off the lead there. It's about how you feel that you can control that animal, and if you don't feel that its recall is good enough, then you shouldn't be letting it off the lead where it can perhaps run through a football game, run into a playground or whatever.
The reason I assume it's more of that as well is because you have those with leads and the kind of, I don't know what you call it, but the extendable leads. And of course, the dogs still go around, so they're still on the lead, but they're still not respectful in other ways as well. So they let roam free amongst graves, if you will, and things like that there. So obviously, it's just about the nature of that individual, about how they control their dog essentially in that side, and about that respect, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's about trying to kind of that message to residents of actually this is what it's trying to do.
Yes,
you know, that's like,
yeah, and I think the phrase we've used is close control, where we've insisted, for instance, in the cemeteries, the dogs need to be on lead, under close control. So
hopefully that would, you know, once the education comes across, that will impose that onto individuals.
We'll describe what that is, and we have got signboards in the cemeteries where we can put some more information up at the entrances to tell people exactly what is expected of us.
Right, any further questions?
No further questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. On the line, Councillor Davis, anything from you, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of things I wanted to mention. I mean, reading through the report, I mean, it's like Councillor Pacina said earlier on, it was very well received, the polls you put out. I was quite concerned with regards to the horses, and I know it was over 15 years, but I mean, the amount of injuries, not just to people, but the horses as well. So I was quite shocked about that. Another thing I wanted to mention was that in the report it says about authorised officers who will have written authority from the council. Are you referring to the people that work at the parks and at the cemeteries? Are they what you're referring to as authorised people?
Yes, Chair. Yes, Councillor. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just one other observation I noticed within your report as well, and it isn't a criticism that it's not there, just a reminder that it should be, with regards to the protected characteristics. I noticed the one that was missing was the one that that we did ratify earlier this year, with regards to care leavers. So I would be grateful when the report is finalised that is actually put in, please.
Yes, certainly, Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anything from Councillor Hussain, please?
No, oh, sorry, nothing from me, Chair.
No, it's at all. Thank you.
I did mention a typo.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
There's a typo on page 3. Yes, it says the purpose of the order will be to enforce responsible dog owners.
Yeah.
I think that word should SHIP.
Yes. Thank you, Councillor.
But from this feeling of the room, I think that's pretty much on that side, and from my feeling is supportive. I think it's just that concern. I say concern, just more the fact of to make sure the enforcement side of things is there, and the education, as we've heard today, and things like that, there's going to be there. Signage is going to be clear, said for those with pictures and things like that there as well. So hopefully, you know, we've learned lessons from the past about ways to enforce it in the future. So on that side, and thank you for your report and for those answers today. I appreciate it. But before I let you go, I know you probably wanted to have dinner and things like that there, but just listen back to some of the what we said, and just if you agree that, then we thank you.
Thanks very much, Chair. So yeah, consensus of the committee is to recommend council considers and approves the order being made at the next for council meeting. Comment about the reassurance the consultation was thorough and shows strong community engagement and contribution from stakeholders. Committee and wider members to promote information within their community groups. Councillor Druitt's query about education campaigns and events. Describe what close control is and put that on the signage at the entrance of cemeteries. Councillor Davis's comment about the protected characteristics to put care leavers in there, and the last one, the typo on page 3. Was there any other comments, recommendations that the committee would like to make?
No, I think that quite says it all really. Sounds good. Yeah, always thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
We just got a few more minutes left, everyone. Won't be too much longer. It's very cold inside. Very cold. It's cold here in Zurich. I don't know if it's cold where you are, but definitely the heating time of year, isn't it?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you. Okay, so we go to item number 5, which is the scrutiny advisory report. So if I can pass it on, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. So just to advise, there's a couple of outstanding outcomes and actions from the previous meeting. I'll chase comments about that. Also included the outcomes and actions accepted from the June meeting by the Safety Partnership report. The next meeting will be on Wednesday, the 19th of November, discussing the Newport Street Venture Partnership annual report. Newport Live, this will then come on 25th of March next year. And then that will be the violence against women, domestic abuse and sexual violence update, and the Safe and Newport Community Safety Review update.
Thank you. And just to confirm, I know a few of you haven't done the training yet, but I would suggest if you haven't already done that, I believe there's training coming up, which will be beneficial for scrutiny as well. Can the dates be recirculated to committee members for that? That's brilliant. So hopefully, if you can, please try and make space for that in your diaries. It's very worthwhile, very good what you learn. But just ask obviously that you do on that side, please. Thank you. And then we just move on to the minutes of the last meeting. So hopefully you've had time to read it. So is anyone happy to propose?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And a seconder? Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much there. So they've been confirmed. So that brings to the conclusion of the meeting this evening, and thank everyone else for their time, and hope you have a good evening. Thank you.